Today I'm going to be going through Tigra's abilities as fast as possible, as well as giving my first impressions on this new champion. That said, let's dive right in. So Tigra is a Mystic champion. Her 5-star stats are 28,045 HP, 2,640 attack, notably top 10, 10,640 PI, notably top 10. Awakened ability is you start the fight with Primal and Huntress Sense for up to 12 seconds, active, against non-cosmic champions. If Tigra is slowed, weakened, or exhausted, her personal miss/unblockable effects are prevented. Primal Sense, when active, is whenever inflicting a rupture, deal a burst of up to 85% of her attack based on the number of damage over time effects on the opponent. This is increased by 100% during specials. Huntress Sense is that 10% chance for all non-contact attacks or special attacks to miss. Additionally, whenever inflicting rupture or causing the opponent to miss, generate 10% of a bar of power. All of her attacks on hit inflict a non-stacking passive neutralize for 2.5 seconds. If it is already active, it refreshes the duration instead. Neutralized opponents have a 100% buff ability accuracy reduction. While the opponent is neutralized, if they fail to gain a buff, inflict rupture, dealing 5% attack over 1 second on a 1 second cooldown. Heavy attacks. While charging and 0.1 seconds after launching, all non-contact hits from special attacks have a 100% chance to miss. If Tigra interrupts the opponent's attack or causes them to miss while charging this attack, each hit inflicts rupture, dealing 50% of her attack over 18 seconds. Special attacks. If the opponent is far away at any point during Tigra's special attack, she gains unblockable for the next hit. Landing an unblockable strike inflicts a 50% attack rupture for 8 seconds. Special 1 on activation alternates between triggering Primal Sense and Huntress Sense. Each lasts for 14 seconds and is paused while the opponent is neutralized. Special 2, each hit has a 10% chance to rupture, dealing 85% of her attack over 4 seconds. Each damaging debuff on the opponent increases the chance of rupture by 10% during this special. Her Special 3 causes you to trigger both Primal and Huntress Sense for 14 seconds and inflicts a non-stacking indefinite rupture, dealing 5% of her attack every 0.5 seconds. This is removed and reapplied each time Tigra lands an unblockable attack. So that said, that is Tigra as fast as possible. As far as abilities, I think that this is probably the most damage-centric Mystic we've had to date. You might say, oh, Doom's got a lot of damage, or Clairvoyant's got a lot of damage, and they do, but when you stack them up against like a lot of the higher damage dealing champions, like their damage is great, but it's great in the Mystic pool. It's not great overall, if you know what I'm saying, because like when you track them on a time to beat like Realm of Legends Winter Soldier, they're not hitting that like 60-second mark, you know, and that's kind of like a really key factor for damage per second. And Tigra looks like she might hit a really, really good damage per second. Maybe. Just kind of depends on the rotation and whether or not you have her Awaken. Her Awaken ability does look fairly important. And I have some like really critical commentary on things I don't like seeing. So first off, her ability to handle buffs is not the standard stagger or nullify that we're used to. Like we see Claire with on-hit nullify or Doom and Symbiote Supreme with stagger. Tigra has this new ability called neutralize, which is 100% buff ability accuracy reduction, which I don't like, because it's different than buff immunity, which kind of circumvents ability accuracy reduction, but neutralize almost inherently can be countered with like ability accuracy immunity or like plus X% ability accuracy to this champion, and I don't like that concept. I would like to see a guaranteed buff nullification. Anything outside of a guaranteed or anything that can be interacted with a node to prevent that guaranteed is something I don't like seeing. It's still great to have, but like it's complicated. Like the 100% means it's guaranteed in all situations where the Kabam is not actively interacting with it, but it leaves that open-ended potential for Kabam to interact with it, which I never like seeing in this kind of situation where like I don't foresee other potential benefits. Like damage resistance, there's a benefit to having 100% damage resistance, and that benefit is willpower. For buff nullification, I don't really see a benefit to not just have a guaranteed that's not percentage based. So yeah, like I would rather see while neutralized, the opponent is unable to trigger buffs. You know, don't put it as 100% buff ability reduction, just say cannot, and that's a lot better. I thought at first this neutralized inflicts a rupture was really stupid, but when you read that you get these huge damage bonuses from having like primal sense active, essentially every time, like on hit, every time the opponent is prevented from triggering a buff, you would get this huge rupture burst. There's actually a lot of potential for that in the long run. Also, like when you have Huntress Sense active, you would instead gain power as well, which would be really good since neutralizing a buff in the first place also triggers Mystic's Dispersion, so you're gonna get a nice chunk of power there, or at least that's the impression I have from here. Mystic's Dispersion, that makes me think they want the neutralize to trigger Mystic Dispersion. Because honestly, otherwise that's just a full troll. As far as everything else, I think there's a lot of things I really like seeing on here. Because like initially you're like 12 seconds or 14 seconds isn't the longest amount of time on Primal Sense and Huntress Sense, but it is a medium to longer period of time, so it feels good overall. Additionally, if you trigger it on SP1, it's paused while you have Neutralize active, and Neutralize being a 2.5 second period means that you could honestly trigger these and have them paused like almost the whole fight. Like this is a really reasonable amount of time to have these active. The only like major question I have is it that every time you throw a special one, you first trigger Primal Sense, then trigger Huntress Sense, and then trigger Primal Sense again? Like, is the optimal rotation going to be special 1, maybe special 2, or maybe special 3, special 2, or something like that? I just have a question quite on the clarity there. I think that's how it works, where you alternate which one you're triggering, but I would need clarification, because in like an alternate reading, you could also read this as on activation alternate between triggering Primal Sense and Huntress Sense, like as in you're gonna switch between the two. That's incredibly unlikely and like a very bad technical determination, but just a little more clarity here would have been nice. I think that the technical writing could have been cleaned up a bit. As far as the Primal Sense and Huntress Sense themselves, I think the Primal Sense looks super powerful with damage, and I think that's super awesome. And the Huntress Sense is going to give you extra power, which I like as well. But keep in mind, again, that both of these are fairly reliant on you hitting into an opponent that is going to be triggering buffs the entire time. Which kind of puts a question of like how often is this situation going to happen, because not like a lot of champions trigger buffs super consistently, but we'll have to see. I think there are going to be a great number of situations where Tigra is going to be like an amazing Mystic champion to bring into a fight. I think the Special 2 has awesome damage potential. I wish that this quantity here for each damaging debuff increases the chance to rupture was a little bit more than flat 10%. Like maybe have this be 33% and then this be 33%, because I would like to see guaranteed big damage here. But that's a petty complaint. It kind of depends on the damage numbers overall. I think your Special 3 looks really solid. I love the inflict and non-stacking. I think considering she's a Mystic champion, it's pretty reasonable to have this be a non-stacking, but I would have honestly liked to have seen like a stack 2 or stack 3, because that would have been really cool for some bigger damage numbers, but we'll have to wait and see across the board how the damage numbers look before I fully judge that as well. And for me, in my personal opinion, I think that she's going to be very beneficial to have at max sig, but I don't think that these are paused unless they were gained from Special 1. Like, that's another thing I really have a question on, where it says on Special 1, on activation, trigger, the duration is paused while the opponent is neutralized. Like, does this mean for all Primal Sense and Huntress Sense, or does this only mean for these two senses when triggered with a Special 1? Again, I'm under the impression it means all, but, you know, if that's the case, I would have liked to see this right here, duration is paused while the opponent is neutralized, up here in the on hit description, just kind of for additional clarity. So besides like all the crazy amounts of clarity, I think that this champion is going to fit a really solid role in Mystics. I think she's going to bring a lot of value in the whole, you know, buff nullification side of Mystics. You aren't really getting power control here, but you are getting some solid buff management with her, as long as you can stay aggressive or manage your aggression for when the opponent is gaining buffs. So yeah, some solid potential for a, I'd say maybe a Symbiote Supreme, maybe a Claire contender, kind of depending on the damage and the fight scenario. But I think Claire and Sim, who are probably like the two more consistent nullifiers in the game, still retain a lot of their value in the fact that they both have extended utility beyond the nullify, and I don't feel like Tigra has utility beyond buff management outside of big damage. But feel free to let me know if you think differently. That said, those are my thoughts. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.